He's never fought us. Not us united.
Die. Oh! I can so see that. That's it. Welcome to Comics League. I'm Jared, and today we are discussing the Fortress of Solitude, Superman's home away from home. This was suggested by Frustrated Fanboy. If you're watching this, thanks for the suggestion. The Fortress of Solitude, and this has been shown in like a variety of different iterations throughout Superman's tenure as a character. So a lot of this stuff could change, but let's discuss it. So I'm going off of a CBR article talking about Superman, 10 things you never knew about the Fortress of Solitude. So Superman is a character that's always been in flux, even back in the Golden Age. The fortress first appeared back then in the Golden Age, but was located in the mountains near Metropolis. Okay, that the fortress has been in many different locations. Like for the longest time, it was in the North Pole for like up until recently, and then it got destroyed by Rogol in the run by the writer we don't talk about on this channel. And then it was relocated to the Bermuda Triangle. I think even it was in like South America at one point. It's really odd. Next, it has a massive key that is used to unlock the door. In All-Star Superman, that's that massive key that Superman uses to like unlock the door. And it's like forged from like a dwarf star material, meaning that he leaves the key like on the floor since only he could lift it. Then we even have like Jimmy Olsen even has a room, and he has a menagerie of alien planets that he hangs out with and feeds and stuff. He also has like a trophy room that has like all of the tools that have been used against him, or like interesting alien technology that he has found and used. And he has like so many different, he has like a lot of different like statues of the Fortress of Solitude. He even has a model of the Titanic in there, which is really interesting there. He even has his own chess game, which is even more interesting. And fun fact, so when Superman died against Doomsday, his body, by the Eradicator, mind you, I'll get into who the Eradicator is later, was brought back to the Fortress of Solitude and put into a regeneration matrix where he was healed up because he was in a Kryptonian healing coma. Now, the Eradicator, at the time of the death of Superman, was a Kryptonian AI that was designed to protect Kal-El should he ever like fall for the regeneration process. In other words, what would happen with the Eradicator is I would fly around Metropolis doing basically Punisher Superman stuff, build up solar radiation, then come back to the Fortress of Solitude and like empty that solar radiation into the pod that Kal-El was healing in. So it was essentially supercharging his healing process. And then Clark Kent even has his own room that has like a lot of his earthly possessions. Now, what's interesting is that Zack Snyder actually played with this a little bit in Man of Steel when he had the Kryptonian scout ship in the Fortress of Solitude. Granted that they moved that in that movie, but he still kind of had the Fortress of Solitude in there. He even had Superman go to like the Arctic or like the snowy mountains during BVS, during the whole the Mankind Will Never Trust Him, Will There Be a Superman thing. And even though that he wasn't going to the fortress, that was still a lot of times what he uses the fortress for, which is to escape from the world and sort of heal, rest, and recuperate. So it still fulfilled that same purpose of the fortress. That's why it was so cool. And also, what's interesting is that during the New 52, when they killed Superman, because they're idiots, but that's besides the point, Kal-El bequeathed the fortress to Kara, and she was supposed to hang on to the fortress as long as he lived, because as far as they didn't know that he was going to be replaced by another Superman, because at this point they didn't know that pre-Flashpoint Superman was in the New 52 Earth. So as far as he knew, Kara was supposed to take over, which would have been an interesting storyline at least. So after the death, obviously what would happen is Mxyzptlk would start screwing with reality, and then it would take the merging of New 52 Superman and Lois to pre-New 52 into singular beings, and then it would like revert the timeline, which was very vindictive in terms of DC, but still that's just DC being vindictive. So how do you do that? Fun fact, the Fortress is the reason why we got T-shirt and jeans Superman back during the DCU stage, because at this point, Vandal Savage had... So Superman had depleted his solar reserves and lost his powers. He went to the Fortress in a stolen motorcycle, so he basically drove there. Then when he got there, the Fortress didn't recognize his DNA and tore the Kryptonian costume off him, because at the time, his Superman suit was Kryptonian battle armor, which I think is better, but I like that. So he had to fight in T-shirt and jeans, and he was essentially Golden Age Superman, because if you remember Golden Age, it was leap tall buildings in a single bound. And then Vandal Savage left the Fortress of Solitude, smashed it into the earth, and eventually Superman was able to regain his powers and his costume and stuff, but it was still pretty cool. So in terms of the Fortress and where I think that stands in Superman lore, I think it's very important. Because here's what the Fortress is. It's Clark's home away from home. I said in the video, and it has to be isolated enough that he can get away from everyone, which is why the Arctic works better than the Bermuda Triangle, even though still the Bermuda Triangle is okay. And it's where he can. And it's also what's interesting. The Fortress of Solitude itself is his greatest show of trust, because when he brings people to the Fortress, that's because he trusts them implicitly, and that's a sign to them that they are important to him. Like when he brought Wonder Woman there in the New 52, when he brought that person Lois Lane, when he brings the Justice Leaguers to the Fortress, that's what I mean by it's a show of trust to people he teams up with. Now, what's also pretty cool is that if you guys see, I have the repainted McFarlane, if I can point right, of the Unchained armor. What happened there is that General Sam Lane attacked the Fortress of Solitude. Superman hopped in that armor and tore apart the General's troops. And by tore apart, I mean he just immobilized their tanks and stuff. He didn't actually kill them. So it wasn't lethal justice. But that's that. But that's where I'm going to talk about the Fortress of Solitude. It's one of the coolest things that's part of Superman's lore. And by the way, the first appearance is Superman 17 from August 1942. So it's not in Action Comics, because remember, Action Comics got successful enough that Superman eventually got his own solo title just called Superman. And then in issue 17 is when the Fortress first showed up. So it's pretty cool, and it's made by Krypton. There are many different versions of how this thing is made. So sometimes it's just a thing in a hole in a mountain or something like that. But the version that everyone knows, at least from the movies, from the Superman movie, is that it's Kryptonian crystals created this fortress. And they did the same thing in Superman and Lois. In the Snyderverse, it's that scout ship. In the comics, they changed it so often, I never know. I think it's still crystals, but they're just relocated. You can drop in the comments if you guys know what the Fortress in the comics is currently, if it's made of crystals or if it's just some other device there. So that's where I'll leave this in terms of what's coming out next on the channel. I have the Justice League rewatch with Nick. I have the Avatar rewatch with Nick. And then in terms of Indie Wednesday, I'm talking about another Amalgam Comics, the Trevor Castle episode, which combines Frank Castle and Steve Trevor and makes Steve Trevor actually a useful character. And under Two Capes, we're asking the age-old question, why are DC fans so bitter? And that's where I'm going to leave it. And then this weekend, we're going to talk about, in terms of movie night, we're talking about Highlander with Nick. And then in terms of pretty soon, we're going to do a discussion of Flash when that movie comes out. Probably next actual week, we'll do a Flash discussion. So on that note, stay heroic, everyone, and I will be sure to see you in the next episode. Thanks. Bye-bye.